I'm going to show how to make this Polystar pattern using Affinity Photo's Procedural Texture Filter. I came up with this shape while I was working with the Polygon shape, and I was trying to make a star pattern, and I came up with this one, which can be either a star or a flower shaped pattern. And it isn't the type of star I was trying to make. I'm going to cover that in a later video, but I thought it looked pretty cool, so I'm going to cover that in this video. And it's very easy to implement once you have the polygon pattern down. I went over the math for the polygon pattern in a previous video, so if you're interested in the sort of underlying mathematics on how that works, I'll put a link to that video in the description for this video. In this video, I'm just going to show how this Polystar pattern is implemented. To get started, I'll start with a new document. I will make it 1024 by 1024 pixels and make sure it's in RGB mode. I'll start by filling it with black and adding a live procedural texture filter. I'll add a single equation and assign it to all three channels. I'm going to add a single real custom input A. I'll call that scale. Set that to 4. And I'm going to add a integer number input. I'm going to call that N. And I'm going to label that sides. So that'll be the number of sides on the polygon. I'll set that up to 5. I'm going to start with a variable. S equals 360 degrees divided by the number of sides, N. And then I'm going to use a variable V equals vec2 of Rx, relative X, and relative Y, Rx, Ry, times A divided by W, which is the width of the document in pixels. Sometimes I prefer to divide by H instead of W, but in this case I'll just use W. Next I'll do another variable, theta, or TH, and that is going to use the arctangent function atan2 to return an angle and from the coordinates v dot y and v dot x. I'm going to use a theta prime variable, which is, I'll call it TP for theta prime. That's derived from theta, but I'm subtracting off the S, which is sort of the swept arc of a side of the polygon, and I'm going to multiply that by the floor, so every side I'm going to increase this by 1, so 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to go up, start with 0 and go up from there, because it's based on theta divided by the swept arc of the polygon, and then I'm going to add 1/2 to it, or 0.5 in this case. And for more on how this works, refer to my previous video. Alright, so that's the theta prime, and now I can just do length of V, which is the radius of the polygon, and then I'm going to use cosine of TP, multiply by that. And so this is my polygon pattern, and this is what I had in my previous video. Now on that one I also added a angle input, I'll call it PH, so that I can rotate this. I'll just call this angle because I like to have the point pointing up. I'm going to add that onto my theta variable, that, and now if I rotate this to 270, there, it looks like a nice pentagon. Now I'm going to add 2 more real inputs. The first one is B, which is going to be a power. So I'm going to raise the cosine function to a power. I'll start it with 1 and then I'll go from there. The other thing I'm going to do is to do a C. I'm just going to call this levels. So I'm going to use this to control how many levels the oscillator takes. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to use a power function around my cosine function. And at the time I was trying to figure out how I could make a star shape. And I found that this gives me sort of a star shape. It's not like a regular star, though. It's sort of a rounded star shape. If I just take the power of a cosine to the b. So if I now, my power is 1, but if I increase this, it gets this sort of a star shape. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I found out that if I go negative, so it's 0, but if I go negative, it creates sort of a flower shape. So it can do either one. So both of those are cool, I thought. Okay, and then the last part that I'm going to show here is if I put this inside of some type of oscillator, and you could use other oscillators, so I'm just going to use the basic OSC oscillator. But I'm going to multiply by C, and that'll be my levels inside there. Then I get this pattern. Okay, so I thought that was pretty cool. But then the other thing I'm going to do is, instead of having just a vec2 up here on my coordinate system, I'm going to put that inside of a fraction and then subtract 0.5 from that, like that. And now, since it's relative coordinates, I have to drag this over, but then I get this repeating pattern like that, and this actually probably works. I like it better when I have an even number of sides on here. But you can get a variety of different patterns, and by adding more levels, you can add stuff like that. And then if I add a gradient map on top of this, like this one, I can get nice patterns like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Just drop that down there. Do that one, like that. Okay, so that's what I'm calling the Polystar shape, and love to see if you come up with anything cool based on this. Otherwise, let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.